This is a Fox News alert. Hello, everyone. I'm Andrea Tantaros. Just a short while ago, President Obama delivered remarks at the White House after the Senate voted to advance legislation to prevent a government shutdown. The measure now moves to the House without a provision to defund Obamacare. But Democrats succeeded in stripping that from the bill, but legislation faces an uncertain fate in the Republican-controlled House. Here's President Obama stepping up the pressure on them.
The good news is, within the past couple of hours, the United States Senate, Democrats and Republicans, acted responsibly by voting to keep our government open and delivering the services the American people expect. Now it's up to the Republicans in the House of Representatives to do the same. So far, the Republicans in the House of Representatives have refused to move forward. The House Republicans are so concerned with appeasing the Tea Party that they've threatened a government shutdown or worse unless I gut or repeal the Affordable Care Act. I said this yesterday, let me repeat it. That's not going to happen. Now, I am willing to work with anybody who wants to have a serious conversation about our fiscal future. We're not going to do this under the threat of blowing up the entire economy. I will not negotiate over Congress's responsibility to pay the bills that have already been racked up. I don't know how I can be more clear about this. Nobody gets to threaten the full faith and credit of the United States just to extract political concessions.
Well, the president also delivered some surprising news during his remarks. He says he spoke on the phone earlier with President Rouhani of Iran, marking the first time that leaders from both countries have directly communicated since 1979. So, what do you guys think about the president negotiating with the Iranian president, but not Republicans? Eric, a little bit shocking that he would open up his speech with that news.
Yeah. I'm blown away. I'm flabbergasted that the president made the phone call to Rouhani after 33 years or so. And there's a reason we haven't negotiated with Iran, because they're state-sponsored terrorists. They're the central bank for terrorism around the world. We all know a lot of people who died in 9/11, the World Trade Center. A lot of the money that was funding that mission is directly tied from the 9/11 Commission, directly tied to Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas. We're going to talk about it a lot more later, but man, what a mistake.
Yeah, this is big news. So quick reaction from you, Greg, on this revelation.
It tells me, I was listening to President Obama, how incredibly tough he was talking about the Republicans, and I realized that if the Republicans want to negotiate with Obama, they should put on Putin masks, and then he will fold like a weak card table. I don't know. The thing is, he talked about crises, and he was blaming the Republicans on these crises. It's like me blaming my wife for my drinking. I don't see how this is the Republicans' fault. He talked about deficit reduction. This got me about how the deficit's being reduced faster than in the last 60 years. That's because he's collected more taxes. That's like bragging that you paid your rent after you robbed a bank. It makes no sense.
Bob, you think this was a little too much for President Obama. Again, he takes the podium, he tries to control the messaging. A little too much, or a smart move by the White House?
Well, look, there's a couple ways to look at this. We're talking about three different things here. We're talking about the Iranians, we're talking about the debt ceiling, we're talking about the budget. I'll take the Iranians when we get back into that segment.
Yeah, good.
On the budget deal, it seems to me that right now the Republicans are in the driver's seat. They've got Obama on the defensive. If they succeed in shutting down the government, we know they'll take the hit on it. Now, the question is, do you really want to do that politically? But last time they did that, they got hurt badly. Do you want to mess around with the full faith and credit of the United States? That one, of all of them, I'd rather see him shut the government down, because that will be – the Wall Street Journal thinks that the markets will fall 1,500 points in the first day. And I tell you, this is what most currencies are backed by the dollar.
Yeah, but that's an unfair statement, what you're saying. We're not going to default. We just won't default. I mean, there are ways of not defaulting, even if you don't raise the debt ceiling, and even if you don't fund the government. I mean,
how do you do that?
What it is it's President Obama sounding the alarm, scaring the crap out of the American people, saying, if we don't raise the debt ceiling, we're going to default.
No, I'm asking you a serious question. How do you do it?
You print more money. You just print and pay.
And President Obama has no problem,
it's a bad
Katie,
option, but you can do
printing money.
Absolutely.
What do you think the goal of Republicans are? Because, of course, there's two issues. Funding the government, and that involves the defunding of Obamacare. but also raising the debt ceiling. So what do you think the goals are by the House Republicans?
Well, I think their goal is to do what they said they were going to do, which is stop Obamacare on both fronts. And I think now the goal is going to be, which actually has been the goal for a long time in the House, is to get some concession on the individual mandate or on the delay when it comes to Congress, on the exemption that Congress gets from Obamacare. But going back to what President Obama was saying real quickly, I want to compare how long the phone call that President Obama made to John Boehner last week was to the phone call that he made to the Iranian president. I'm wondering which one was longer. And it's funny that in the same statement that he made when he's talking about Republicans and the Iranians, he's talking to Republicans through the television. He said, if any of you are watching this, you need to think about who you're hurting. So instead of sitting down with them at a table, he's instead talking to them through a television screen while he's on the phone with the Iranian president.
He spent hours with Boehner last year. Hours and hours and hours.
It's a different year. We're at the situation.
Yeah, but I mean, they've tried to have these conversations, and both sides are being, I think, not being very reasonable about this all the way around.
That's not exactly fair. I mean, last time around, Bob, Boehner conceded, and he had a very angry conference on his hand. And, Greg, there's a lot of things that Republicans want. One of them is something that you support, and a lot of us support here, which is the Keystone Pipeline.
Right.
They also are talking about a delay of the individual mandate or removing those subsidies to member of Congress. I actually changed my mind. I don't think they should delay the individual mandate because I think the president will take them up on that offer and then blame Republicans for denying people health care. That aside, what do you think Republicans should go for?
Well, I think they should focus on the individual mandate, because if the employees at a restaurant don't want to eat at their restaurant, why should you? If there's a, if there's an F on the door, you don't go into that restaurant, and that's what they're saying. We should force. There should be a rider, I guess, on the debt ceiling that says politicians must be forced to take their own medicine, and by their own medicine, it means not just public health, but also public education. They got to put their kids in public school.
You mean on the budget?
Yeah, on the budget, sorry. They got to put their kids into public school. They got to take public health. They would become libertarian faster than you can say Ayn Rand.
Well, I think